is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
And welcome once again to On the Money, where we're focused on the UK's cost of living crisis, helping you beat the squeeze. Well, the government's unveiled that long-awaited energy security strategy, but will it lower our fuel bills and help keep the lights on? Or is it all hot air? We host a detailed discussion. And what about fracking? The controversial extraction of UK shale gas. The government's kicked that one into the long grass. But is it really dangerous? We talk to one of Britain's most experienced energy drilling engineers. On the Money, after the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
Good afternoon, it's just 1 minute past 1. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date on GB News. The Prime Minister says the government's energy strategy is about making sure the UK never again is blackmailed by people like Vladimir Putin. And it's about tackling mistakes of the past. Well, the new strategy published today aims to boost homegrown nuclear, wind, solar and hydrogen power to reduce the UK's dependence on overseas oil and gas and to try to keep energy prices stable. Well, under the plans, the government hopes to deliver up to 8 nuclear reactors by 2030.
Have energy security here in the UK. This is the home of nuclear energy. We first split the atom in the UK. We had the first civilian nuclear power plant. We're bringing nuclear home with one nuclear plant and one nuclear reactor every year for 8 years rather than one a decade.
The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, says the measures fail to address the issues people face right now.
This won't help those who only last week saw their energy bills go up by hundreds of pounds. What they want from the government is a response that meets that challenge. This list, this cobbled together list of things that could and should have been done over the last 10 to 12 years isn't enough. And, you know, it leaves, because of political squabbling, it leaves out of account really important initiatives like keeping homes warm, insulating homes, which I've seen for myself, can make a huge difference and reduce bills by up to £400. That's the real action we were looking for today.
Boris Johnson has described attacks in Ukraine as systematic slaughter of innocent people. Earlier today, the Foreign Secretary announced that the UK is banning all imports of Russian energy and is stepping up its supply of weapons to Ukraine. Liz Truss revealed the new measures at a NATO gathering of foreign ministers in Brussels this morning. Ukraine's foreign minister says the country needs more weapons from its NATO allies to repel Russian forces. Well, what of the Russian military forces? Well, according to British military intelligence, their forces are focusing on the Donbass region in Ukraine, with artillery and airstrikes continuing in the area. The military intelligence from Britain also adds that Russian forces are likely to continue facing issues of morale and shortages of both supplies and personnel. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister says the country hopes to evacuate trapped civilians through 10 humanitarian corridors. President Zelensky told the Greek Parliament there's still 100,000 people stuck in Mariupol.
We have never seen a city being reduced to ashes, completely flattened. The city being completely under the siege. Its residents are killed by hunger and thirst. There are still about 100,000 people still left in the city, but there is virtually no building left undamaged.
A security guard accused of spying for Russia at the British Embassy in Berlin has pleaded not guilty. David Smith appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court charged with 9 offences under the Official Secrets Act. He's been remanded in custody. The British national was extradited to the UK from Germany. Let's find out more. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is outside the court now. Mark, good afternoon to you. What's the update?
Well, he has now appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court. This 57-year-old man is a British national. He was in Germany, based there, working as a security guard at the British Embassy in Berlin when he was arrested in August of last year. Now, he was subsequently charged with 9 offences under the Official Secrets Act of attempting to gather information to pass on to the Russian state. One of the charges relates to the communication with the Russian military attaché in Berlin, Major General Sergei Chukharov, also gathering information on the operations and activities of the British Embassy in Berlin. Now, he indicated that he would be pleading not guilty to all of the charges. He's been remanded back into custody, will appear at the Central Criminal Court, the Old Bailey, on the 13th of April.
Mark, thank you very much at Westminster Magistrates Court. Now, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has accused the Chancellor of breathtaking hypocrisy because of his wife's non-domicile tax status. Now, this follows reports by The Independent that she may have saved millions by not paying UK tax on foreign income, which is believed to be worth billions, and has defended her non-domicile status. Labour says, though, the Chancellor should reveal the extent of tax savings his family has made, whilst Rishi Sunak increased taxes for working families. More than 750,000 people in the UK have reported having long COVID for more than a year. The Office for National Statistics estimates 1.7 million people were likely to be experiencing symptoms in February. The new data also shows long COVID symptoms are estimated to affect the day-to-day activities of over 1 million people. You're up to date on GB News. I'll keep you up to date across the afternoon. Now let's head back to Liam for On the Money.
And this is On the Money. Coming up, the government's unveiled that long-awaited energy security strategy. There'll be more nuclear, more wind, solar and hydrogen power to help reduce our reliance on overseas energy. But none of it soon enough to counter the current rise in our spiralling energy bills. We're on Teesside this hour talking about new regulations limiting the use of so-called red diesel. Countless businesses are furious. Plus, each day On the Money features an in-depth Money Talks interview. Today we're talking fracking, the controversial energy drilling method that's off the agenda for now. But is it really dangerous? As environmental campaigners insist, we talk to one of Britain's most experienced oil and gas drilling engineers. That's later in the show. And as ever, I want your questions, opinions, ideas. What do you think of the issues raised in today's On the Money? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @GBNews. But stay with us. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan. You're On the Money. For years, said Boris Johnson this morning, governments have dodged the big decisions on energy, but not this one. Our energy security strategy, the Prime Minister continued, sets out our plans to make British energy cleaner, more affordable and more secure. Boris Johnson today visited Hinkley Point, the multi-billion-pound nuclear plant in North Somerset, as the UK launched a new energy security strategy. While gas is subject to supply and price shocks and renewables rely on an intermittent sunshine and wind, nuclear provides a steady baseload stream of energy to make sure our kettles keep boiling and the lights stay on. The government's energy strategy says that up to 8 new nuclear plants could be built by 2030, upping the pace from 1 a decade to 1 a year. Plans are being advanced to approve 2 new reactors at Sizewell in Suffolk during this Parliament. And Wilver in Anglesey is also named as a possible site for either a large-scale plant, smaller modular reactors, or even both during the next Parliament. More onshore wind is planned, but there will also be more consultation, given that the turbines divide public opinion. Targets for hydrogen production are to be doubled, with a plan to have a working facility by 2025. And there'll be more solar and offshore wind power. That's also on the cards. New North Sea oil and gas licences are also set to be approved. This Russia-Ukraine conflict and the resulting surge in energy prices has highlighted the UK's heavy reliance on overseas energy. North Sea oil and gas production, by the way, has halved over the last 20 years. The government acknowledges today's energy strategy won't cushion us from today's spiralling energy bills and the broader cost of living crisis. And ministers insist they remain as committed as ever to their net zero environmental agenda. So what to make of this energy security strategy? Will it keep the lights on? Will it eventually bring down those sky-high bills? And that's today's On the Money question. Does the government's energy security strategy really stack up? Grown-up conversations, as ever on this show, with people who know their stuff. So it's a pleasure to welcome back Christina Rabotsaite. She is an energy market expert, CEO of Papaya, a tech startup in the renewable energy space. Welcome back to you. Ross Dornan, Market Intelligence Manager at Offshore Energies. He's with us. Claire Jackson, the CEO at Hydrogen UK. Welcome to both of you. And last, by no means least, we can't keep her away, Jasmine Birtles, MissMoneyMagpie.com. Here she is. Let's talk to you first, Ross. What do you make of this energy security strategy? Is there much in it that we didn't already know? Is it mostly presentational?
I think, firstly, I think it's really interesting and I think it's really ambitious. And I think the right thing to do, and I think the strategy aims to do this, is to limit our exposure to international markets as much as possible, because that's what's driving some of the security issues we're having and some of the affordability issues we're having. The UK is really blessed to have such diversity of energy resources, from oil and gas through our wind resources, our nuclear potential, our hydrogen potential. And the right thing to do is to make the most of them. However, this strategy, I think, is ambitious in its pace of delivery and what it's trying to achieve. And what we need to do is to digest it a bit more and see how the industry can work really closely with the government to make it a reality, to attract the investment that's going to be needed to achieve this, and to make sure that the capabilities are in place across British companies to make the most of that investment and keep as much of it here in the UK as possible, because this is a huge opportunity, not just for energy security, but also for British manufacturing bases as well, looking longer term.
Claire Jackson, CEO at Hydrogen UK. Some viewers and listeners may not be aware, but of course, a lot of British companies are already looking at hydrogen energy, using electrolysis, clean energy to do the electrolysis to create the hydrogen that can then be used in various forms in engines. JCB are at the cutting edge of this, one of our thoroughbred firms. Did you see anything in this energy security strategy that you didn't know before? Are you assured that the government is now going to take hydrogen, for instance, more seriously?
Yeah, so we were really pleased to see the government double down on its commitment to hydrogen and double the production capacity target that we're looking at by 2030 from 5 gigawatts to 10 gigawatts. Now, hydrogen is one of the key solutions that we have for tackling emissions from the energy sector. And if we sort of think of it a little bit like a sort of clean fuel that doesn't have any carbon in it, that can be used across the energy sector. It can be used in industry for things like steel production, glass production, automotive production. It can also be used in transport, particularly for some of those larger vehicles that are very hard to electrify, like trucks, lorries, ships, planes. And it can also be piped to our homes and burnt in hydrogen boilers to deliver zero carbon heat. So this new target is really important for the industry because it will allow us to deliver more carbon emissions more quickly, and critically, it will allow us to bring down the cost of hydrogen quicker so that it can become affordable for all of these different applications.
As long as, of course, as it's so-called clean hydrogen made from renewable hydrogen, or what some people call yellow hydrogen, made from atomic energy. I know the French are specialising in that, but we'll come back to you. Christina, what do you make of this? Is it just presentational? And the same question to you.
I am very pleased that we're finally looking at sort of longer-term strategies, because that's what needed to happen. But coming from renewable industry, I am very disappointed about the onshore wind decision.
More consultation that I referred to.
Yes, exactly.
You think that'll slow it down?
It's not as positive as it could have been for wind onshore, and it's disappointing that the reasons for it is just calling it an eyesore for not building it. It's I think it would have really reduced the bills short term and given us a real boost now rather than having to wait 5 or 10 years for the changes.
And what do you think of what Claire said about hydrogen? As you know, when we've talked in the past, I'm quite enthusiastic about hydrogen as well. Do you buy that? I mean, this is really your area.
Yep, hydrogen, it's definitely the future. Lithium-ion is not going to get us there. We need longer-term storage.
And you need lithium in the batteries for electric cars, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And hydrogen, yes, very, very happy. And maybe we'll need even more of it. Hopefully the targets will increase year after year.
Jasmine, what do you make of this, both from a kind of economic and a political point of view?
Well, the first point about it really for the consumer, which is what I deal with a lot, is it's of no use right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be, well, at least 3 years, probably 5 years before.
As Kwasi Kwarteng admitted to his credit, the business energy secretary.
He did. And on the one hand, it's understandable that people are throwing bricks at the government, but really it's the government 10 years ago that should have been dealing with this. And the thing is that I think a lot of MPs have known that they should have done it 10 years ago. We should. I'm very glad actually to hear about the nuclear plants being set up, because we are using.
Labour said no, we need no more nuclear, didn't we, in their 97 manifesto?
Well, absolutely. I think it's shown that was wrong, because honestly, I think nuclear is the only way to produce enough energy to cover what we are using.
70% of France's electricity famously, and their fuel bills aren't rocketing nearly as much as ours. Let's go back to you, Ross. How real do you think the government's commitment is to speed up the issuance of those oil and gas drilling licences in the North Sea? As I said in my opening remarks, extraction of North Sea oil and gas has roughly halved since the year 2000. Can we expect a quick reversal in that? Can we reverse that quickly?
I think there are options to really make the most of our domestic oil and gas resources, but it really comes down to how much we are able to invest in the industry and our ability to mobilise the capital into the sector and to attract investment to the UK, because this is a competitive global market for investment across the oil and gas sector. Government support is crucial. We've had some really important and helpful shows of support from the UK government in recent months. What we've been saying is that it's important that support endures. And so it's really, really good and helpful to see it with the role of oil and gas being recognised within the energy strategy today. We've got a few different views on how the oil and gas production from the UK is likely to evolve in the next few years. Really, it's all about managing our rate of decline. We're a mature basin. As you said, it's halved within the last 20 years, and it is likely to continue to decline. If we don't invest in our own resources, though, it's probably going to decline at a rate of something in excess of 15% per year over the remainder of the decade, and that leaves us more exposed to the international markets, because we're still going to be using a lot of oil and gas despite the measures within this strategy. But if we do invest in opening up new resources, and things like the licensing round commitment today help, and some of the commitments to accelerating new projects help, it means we can manage our production at a rate of decline of something in the region of 5% per year over the remainder of the decade. And that means it will be less exposed to countries like Russia or some of the Middle Eastern OPEC countries on our domestic energy security. And it means that we're making the most of our natural resources. And it's not just about the energy security benefits of that oil and gas, it's the economic contributions, it's our tax contributions, and it's also providing the companies a really solid foundation to allow them to diversify their investments, their skills and their expertise into cleaner forms of energy in the future.
Bring in Claire Jackson. We're about to go to the break. We will carry on this important discussion after the break. But Claire, You heard what Christina said there. You know that I'm pretty enthusiastic about hydrogen. We often talk about it on this show. How can you do more to kind of promote it? It seems to be, to me, the kind of Cinderella solution. It always seems to be way behind electric vehicles and other, what I think are far less promising technologies.
Well, hydrogen is just a bit of the sort of new kid on the block. Although some of these solutions have been around for a while, we're now just getting to the point where they're starting to be commercialized and they're starting to appear on people's driveways and in people's homes. So it's still sort of early days, but we need to really sort of take on that responsibility as an industry. You know, hydrogen is going to touch every part of our energy system, every part of our society, and we need to make sure that we are bringing people along on this journey so that they understand the benefits that hydrogen can bring, not only to the way that they're currently using energy or transport or heat, but also in terms of the jobs that it's going to create in the UK as well. You know, the UK is not the only one that's noticed that there's a big opportunity in hydrogen. You know, many countries are looking at hydrogen as one of the sort of key decarbonisation solutions, but also as a key economic opportunity. It's estimated that the hydrogen market will be worth $2.5 trillion by 2050 and supporting 30 million jobs worldwide. And we want to see as many of those as possible created here in the UK. At Hydrogen UK, we've estimated that we could see up to 75,000 jobs created in the hydrogen space by 2035. But we need to move fast and we need to go further.
Claire Jackson there, CEO of UK Hydrogen. Stay with us, Claire. Stay with us in general, because this is On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. And after the break, we will keep this discussion going on the day the government releases its long-awaited energy security strategy. Your emails are flooding in thick and fast. This is important stuff. Spiralling bills, energy security. Stay with us.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss, and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Welcome back. It's 1:22. You're on the money on GBNews TV, DAB Plus digital radio and online. I'm still with my expert panel. We're talking about the government's new energy security strategy, a long-awaited paper that came out today. Christina Rabasaite, let's go back to you. You founded Papaya. It's a renewable energy trading platform. You are a renewable specialist. What do you see in this energy review about renewables that we need to know that we haven't already mentioned?
So was great news to see how much solar is going to be built in the next 10, 15 years. So we're celebrating that. As I mentioned before, disappointed with the onshore wind news, because I think that would have been a great boost right now to make a difference. But also what I missed is seeing technologies like anaerobic digestion.
Anaerobic digestion.
Anaerobic digestion.
That's a new one on me.
This is
that after I've eaten a particularly heavy curry and a few beers?
Similar. And so, as I said, I hang around with farmers quite a lot, and Shropshire, Scotland, everywhere. And there's so much capacity to produce electricity from waste, from pig muck, from all sorts of things that are not being used at the moment.
That could seriously add to our baseload energy.
Well, I mean, in Denmark, 25% of electricity comes from anaerobic digestion.
Wow.
Which is incredible.
That is incredible.
And so there's certainly other technologies there to consider, and I feel like we've sort of covered the main things with wind and solar, which are intermittent. And the good news with solar is, yes, we'll produce a lot more of it, but it's only 11% efficiency.
Yeah.
And anaerobic digestion.
And we're not Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, exactly.
The weather's not great.
I know. So anaerobic digestion has about 85% efficiency.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned any carbon capture technologies. There are amazing biomass assets and energy landfill gas.
Yeah.
And, that historically have been very, very dirty and unpopular. But with carbon capture technology, they genuinely can deliver clean electricity to the grid and 24/7 a day.
We certainly are going to have to get a lot more innovative, aren't we, Jasmine Birtles? Not least because of how this Russia-Ukraine conflict has really highlighted our energy insecurity. This is usually the sort of stuff of nerds, these kind of discussions. What do you think about solar? Because I know a lot of people that email you at moneymagpie.com, that email me here on The Money, they're worried that solar panels, they're not very efficient, as Christina Rabasaiti rightly said. We're covering a lot of our land. Should we be growing food?
Well, exactly. This is what bothers me. I mean, I'm a fan of solar, as you say, in Saudi Arabia, in places where it works. But I am concerned that I think the next crisis is going to be food here. And already farmers are being encouraged to stop growing actual food and turn it into solar panels or other energy-producing crops. And I think that I'd like to know where these panels are supposed to go, because I don't want farms to be turned into energy-producing rather than food-producing businesses now.
And do you see anything in this that helps ordinary people struggling to pay their fuel bills? Anything at all in this energy strategy that's going to affect any of our lives in the next 6 months?
Honestly, no. Not in the next 6 months. It's going to take a while. I know. I mean, I looked at it and thought, at last. Why wasn't it, 5 years, just even 5 years
He's going to have
ago?
to do more, though, the Chancellor, isn't he?
Yes.
As these bills start rising. And,
I really think so, because, as you know, I was very disappointed by the spring statement, but I think...
And we're both predicting a summer statement, aren't we?
I hope so, yeah.
Ross Doran, let's go back to you. When it comes to North Sea oil and gas, I've just been sort of, while listening to other guests, I've been kind of absorbing your previous answer. You seem to be saying, and you really know what you're talking about, this is what you do for a living, you seem to be saying that perhaps the best we can hope for in the North Sea is to stem the rate of decline of North Sea oil and gas at best, or was I over-interpreting? Can we actually increase the amount of oil and gas that we get from the North Sea?
So I don't think you're misinterpreting. If you think about what you said earlier on, our production's been falling for the last 20 years. That's because of the maturity of our basin. We say that a lot of the easier oil and gas opportunities are gone. But there's also been a lack of investment, to be blunt, within the industry in recent years, and a lot of uncertainties within the investment framework. We've also had really volatile commodity prices. So a lot of things have come together towards creating the profiles that we see at the moment. When we look to the future, I think we need to think short term, medium to longer term as well as that. And they both require different things. In the shorter term, there is some opportunities to stabilise our production, potentially even grow it a little bit over the next 2 or 3 years, because we have new fields which are due to come on stream. There's some things we can do to make sure that we improve our efficiency of our production. That might come together to something like a 2 to 5% increase maybe over the next 2 or 3 years. However, longer term, we have to be realistic that our basin is the position our basin is one of decline. And we have to think about, as I said earlier on, how we want that decline to look. If we manage it really carefully, it can decline slower than how oil and gas demand is likely to decline. So overall, our contribution towards meeting our domestic supplies from domestic resources is maintained or potentially even grows a little bit. I think the challenge is, though, if we don't steward our resources effectively, if we don't invest in them, if we don't support our companies to drill new wells and look for new resources and pick up new licenses, then we might have real concerns over our ability to manage our production in even a way which is minimal decline. We might be looking at rapid decline of, as I said earlier on, 15%+ per year. All that will do is increase our exposure to the international markets.
Ross, thanks for that. Let me just bring in Claire, just last few moments now. Claire, let me ask you, you are the CEO of UK Hydrogen, you're a lobby group for hydrogen. I mean, in my own reading and talking to people, I'm beginning to think these electric cars, with their reliance on lithium, rare earths that are dominated by the Chinese and other difficult countries, I'm starting to think that electric vehicles are a bit of a dead end. I'm starting to think we should use hydrogen vehicles. The impact of charging electric vehicles on the national grid is huge. Is our national grid even geared up for that kind of drawdown from cars? I mean, I guess you agree with me, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. That's a great point. And I think, as with many things in this space, there is not one solution. And I think in the future, we're not going to see, 100% hydrogen vehicles. We're not going to see 100% battery vehicles. But actually, there's a role for both of these two to play. And I think this speaks to a wider point around, whether we should be pitting some of these technologies against each other, or actually whether we should be recognizing that some of these are complementary. There's a huge role for electrification to play. There's a huge role for hydrogen to play. I sometimes like to think of net zero a little bit like a ketchup bottle. That first bit comes out quite easily. That's your electrification. But then that last bit of ketchup in the back of the bottle, it's really hard to get out. That's what hydrogen is really good for. And there's many reasons in the transport sector why you might want to use hydrogen instead of a battery. Part of it is to do with the user experience. So if you're using a hydrogen car, you rock up at a refueling station, it takes you a few minutes to refuel, and then you can get sort of 300-400 miles on a single tank. So from a user perspective, hydrogen vehicles have got a lot of benefits, but I think the reality is we will probably see a combination of both battery vehicles and hydrogen vehicles moving forwards.
Can we keep the lights on?
We can. We've got plenty of renewables, we've got plenty of options, and the future's looking bright.
Jasmine, can we keep the lights on?
Yes, I think
that's it. Stop there. We can keep the lights on. Thanks to all my guests today: Christina Rabataita of Papaya, Ross Dornan of Offshore Energies, Claire Jackson of Hydrogen UK, and Jasmine Birtles of MissMoneyMagpie.com. What a panel! What experience! What understanding! Because this is On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Coming up, we look at how new restrictions on red diesel might have an impact on your business. You want to know what that is? Stick around. And today's Money Talks is with Gary Taylor, a globe-trotting oil and gas drilling engineer extraordinaire. As a highly experienced industry insider, he gives us his take on the future of fracking after the government ordered a review into the safety of the controversial drilling method. All that after the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
Good afternoon, it's 1:32. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date on GB News. The Prime Minister says the government's energy strategy is about tackling mistakes of the past and making sure the UK is never again blackmailed by people like Vladimir Putin. The strategy published today aims to boost homegrown nuclear, wind, solar and hydrogen power to reduce the UK's dependence on overseas oil and gas and to try to keep energy prices stable.
Energy security here in the UK. This is the home of nuclear energy. We first split the atom in the UK. We had the first civilian nuclear power plant. We're bringing nuclear home with one nuclear plant and one nuclear reactor every year for 8 years rather than one a decade.
Well, Boris Johnson has described attacks in Ukraine as systematic slaughter of innocent people. Earlier today, the Foreign Secretary announced that the UK is banning all imports of Russian energy and is stepping up its supply of weapons to Ukraine. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has accused the Chancellor of breathtaking hypocrisy because of his wife's non-domicile tax status. Well, it follows reports by The Independent that she may have saved millions by not paying UK tax on foreign income. More than 750,000 people in the UK have reported having long COVID for more than a year. The Office for National Statistics estimates 1.7 million people were likely to be experiencing symptoms in February. The new data also shows long COVID symptoms are estimated to be affecting the day-to-day activities of over 1 million people. You're up to date here on GB News, on your TV, online and radio. Shortly, we'll be back to Liam for On the Money.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Welcome back. It's 1:36. You're on the money. Now, I was still with my expert panel, but I'm not anymore because we're soon going to be going to Rachel Sweeney. Energy is dominating the headlines, from soaring petrol prices to the new energy security strategy. But you may not know that on the 1st of April, new regulations regarding red diesel came into force, affecting countless UK businesses. But what exactly is red diesel? It's fuel that up until April the 1st was used by off-road mobile machinery, primarily in the agricultural, marine and construction sectors. Red diesel's taxed at a lower rate to road or white diesel you get at the garage, as it's always a business expense. But as of this month, the 1st of April, the use of red diesel is limited now to a much smaller range of vehicles and sectors. For instance, the construction sector is now excluded. Well, our North East of England reporter is live in Billingham, Stockton-on-Tees, speaking to one of the countless companies affected by this. And here she is, Rachel Sweeney.
Hi, Liam. Yes, I'm at Scott Brothers in Billingham on Teesside. Now, this is one of the leading recycling businesses in the northeast of England. It was founded back in 1972. It provided lorries and excavators to local authorities. But in the last 50 years, much like the rest of the northeast, it has developed and gone greener. Joining me now are company directors Peter Scott and Bob Borthwick. Bob, we're going to start with you. Tell me a little bit about the business and how you use red diesel.
Well, we use red diesel in all of our recycling operations predominantly, so that manufactures recycled aggregates, and we also use it in our soil washing facility as well, which actually produces sands and pipe beddings. So it's quite an intensive red diesel usage that we use it for in those operations. So the effect of the white diesel imposition on those processes has significantly increased costs to produce those services and those materials for our clients.
Now, you've estimated that those costs are £1.5 million a year. Peter, can you explain the maths? So it was 70p a litre, that went up. What happened next?
It was 70p a litre for the red diesel. The red diesel is now, we can't use it anymore. I mean, even that was close to £1 a litre before we were unable to use it. Now we have to use white, and everybody knows the cost of white, so it's pretty much doubled the cost of our fuel to run all of our recycling machines.
What are you going to do to absorb £1.5 million a year?
I think it's even more than that when you look at the cost of the white diesel going up as well, but we've increased our costs, so it's going to, ultimately it'll affect the end user, and hopefully we can absorb those costs and still remain slightly profitable.
Bob, do you think this will affect net zero targets?
It will really, because it will detract from our investments into new technologies and research into net zero offers that we're trying to offer and reduce our sort of net carbon footprint. So that investment will be drastically and significantly reduced.
Thank you so much. It's going to take Scott Brothers months to adjust to these new restrictions, and even then it's going to be very difficult to know if they can absorb the financial changes enough to remain profitable. We'll have to see.
Very interesting there from Rachel Sweeney, talking to company directors Peter Scott and Bob Borthwick on Teesside. Interesting stuff about the removal of the use of red diesel for so many industries. Seems pretty inflationary to me. Is this really the right time, Chancellor, to be doing that? So the government plans to massively scale up the UK's nuclear capacity, we've been hearing. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng suggesting up to 8 new sites could be in operation by 2050. Our East of England reporter Amelia Harper. She's been to Sizewell B power station in Suffolk to test the mood.
Operating since 1955, Sizewell B supplies 3% of the UK's electricity, or enough to power 2.5 million homes in East Anglia. It's one of 8 nuclear power stations in the UK. Most of the existing reactors are due to reach the end of their lives and shut down before 2030, but more are being built. French energy company EDF is currently building Hinkley Point C power station in Somerset. It also plans to build another plant, Sizewell C, next to Sizewell B in Suffolk. It's been backed by £100 million of government funding. Robert Gunn is the station director at Sizewell B power station.
So at the moment, nuclear is just about 20% of the country's electricity, 24/7, 365 days of the year. But if you look forward, when we get the new power stations on, Hinkley C, Sizewell C, and here at Sizewell B can provide power for over 15 million homes, a fantastic amount of energy for the country.
But not everyone is convinced about the future for nuclear, including local campaigner Alison Downs.
There are numerous future energy scenarios that do not include Sizewell C, and clearly solar, onshore wind, offshore wind, all of those can roll out faster and more cheaply than nuclear power. Our energy crisis is now, and we shouldn't be putting so much money into a technology that won't deliver for at least 15 years, by which time our energy landscape can be transformed by storage and energy efficiency. The Sizewell C project is risky, expensive and incredibly slow to build, and everyone in the country should be concerned about it because they will all have to help pay for it, not just the people who live here.
Projects on the scale of Sizewell C take about a decade to go from concept to reality.
We've worked really hard with the local community to take on feedback, and that's actually helped us to shape the proposal, and based on that feedback there has been quite a number of large changes made to make the project as seamless as possible for the local community. On the other side of that though, there will literally be thousands, if not tens of thousands of jobs being created and tens of millions of pounds being pumped into the local community and indeed hundreds of millions into the UK economy.
Amid a cost of living crisis, the government is looking to other low-carbon energy sources. Nuclear is high on the agenda, but the build timescales mean it won't start making a difference for many years to come. Amelia Harper, GB News, Suffolk.
Amelia Harper there at the Sizewell nuclear facility in the east of England. And it's time now for my daily interview series. It's Money Talks. And all I can say is, what the frack? Because fracking wasn't included in today's energy security strategy. Earlier this week, the government launched a review, handy, into the controversial drilling method to extract shale gas. And that's not going to report back for 3 months. But there are increasing calls for ministers to set aside the concerns of many environmentalists and lift the 2019 ban on UK fracking, implemented after reports of earth tremors. So what's the truth about fracking? Well, On the Money's tracked down an industry specialist, someone who's drilled for oil and gas using fracking and all manner of methods, from the Middle East to Asia to our own North Sea. So please welcome Scotland's own Gary Taylor, among Britain's most experienced oil and gas drilling engineers, our latest guest on Money Talks. Gary, great to have you on the show. Just give us a little sense of your experience in the oil and gas industry. I've described you as a globe-trotting oil and gas drilling engineer.
Thanks, Liam. You make it sound very glamorous. But no, my experience extends to 35 years, predominantly in the North Sea, Middle East and Far East, as well as Crimea and Russia as well, which is quite a topical location right now for obvious reasons.
Now, you've watched the energy industry debate over the last few years. You know, a few years ago, nuclear was extremely controversial. Now, we've got many environmentalists backing nuclear. Not all of them, of course, as we just heard in Amelia Harper's report. And we've seen fracking go from, the great hope to something that's been completely written off by many people. What's the truth about fracking? What's your opinion, given that it's what you do?
It is, it's interesting. I mean, to many, electricity and nuclear are far more dangerous than to someone like myself involved in the industry, drilling the actual process of drilling the oil wells. We've been drilling the North Sea for 50 years. We've been fracking those wells offshore. I don't know anyone that's seen any adverse effect through earthquake, through pollution of water sources in the UK whatsoever. Moving onshore obviously is a little bit more emotive in so much as it's in our backyards. But again, the UK, probably the most legislative country in the world with regards to safety and the extraction of oil and gas. And I think, again, it's something we can do quickly. We have the infrastructure in place for gas. And if it's controlled and engineered, as it has been in the North Sea for the past 40 years, then I think people don't need to worry about all the horror stories and these fake news stories that we see on YouTube from the US.
It's a strong statement from you, Gary, fake news. Let's just go back to what fracking actually is. Now, my understanding is the reason it's different from conventional drilling is that you are injecting into the wellhead water, a combination of water and chemicals and sand under very high pressure to split rocks apart, getting oil and gas out of those so-called tight formations. Fracking tends to be more expensive than conventional drilling, but it is highly effective. In America, we've seen a fracking revolution, and now American wholesale gas is much cheaper than it is in Europe. Is it more dangerous, though? Even if you're saying it's not particularly dangerous, is it more dangerous than conventional drilling? Does it cause earth tremors, in some cases serious, or do you think the whole thing has been unfairly demonised?
I think it's been unfairly demonised. There is no doubt that there is a greater danger than the actual drilling process itself. The fracking process, as you say, is once the well is drilled and completed to extract the oil and gas from the rock, you need porosity, you need permeability. These rocks have no permeability, so we use high pressure fluids with what we call proppant in it, maybe that may be sand, maybe ceramic beads, etc., to crack the rock, and then those sands, etc., hold the rock open to allow the gas to flow. So that is the only added danger to the whole process, is that fracking, which may cause earth tremors. For example, we get 200 to 300 earthquakes a year in the UK already, and the magnitude of those would be on a par with what we see with the fracking process. It can be controlled to a degree, and it's all done under controlled environments.
And Gary, I mean, I've read lots about fracking. I'm not an oil engineer like you. I like to give this debate a really fair crack of the whip here on Money Talks. I'm delighted to have you on with your expertise. Yesterday, I had Francis Egan on, the CEO of Quadrilla. But I must say, from what I've read and heard, there have been some dangers. There have been some earth tremors onshore. Was there not at least some justification for that late 2019 moratorium coming in? Or would you say it was just the government posturing to environmental lobbies before a general election?
I think there's an element of posturing. I think it's good that we are controlling it. All we can do, like everything, we talk about the science. We've heard about the science during a pandemic, and it's that research and trial and to some degree error. But we use blasting techniques to build motorways. We use chemicals to pour down our drains. Nothing really different from the fracking process itself. It's just a more unknown quantity to the general public. Again, the only way to learn about the science is to continue fracking in a controlled environment. And under the UK guidelines, that's exactly what we're doing.
Let's just go back to the North Sea. Of course, North Sea oil and gas has been a huge boon for the UK. Only in Norway across Western Europe does any other country have the production capability that we have. We were just talking to Ross Doonan there of UK offshore oil and gas, and he was saying that the best we can really hope for, and he works for a lobby group trying to increase production from the North Sea, given the drop-off in production over recent years, halving since the year 2000, North Sea oil and gas. He said that the best we can do is stem the decline to sort of, slow down more, at a slower pace, if you like. What's the word within the oil industry itself, among people who work on the front line, about the North Sea? Is there still a lot more we can squeeze from that particular lemon? Do you think we're too lacking in ambition for what the North Sea could be in terms of a supplier of oil and gas?
I don't think we're ever going to see the boom days again, and I think it's correct that stemming it is probably more likely than a boom. And again, part of the reason for that is the cost of extraction in North Sea, and that again stems from the regulation and legislation that's put in place to keep it safe. Now, I'd rather A, buy local, and B, have it from a safe source rather than from unproven territories and shipping it across the world. I mean, we tend to buy everything local except oil and gas in our own backyard.
I think, Gary, you're obviously a very keen observer of this debate, often with a wry smile, I suggest, given how oversimplified it is in the public domain compared to what you guys in the industry live and breathe every day. What did you think when you heard just the day before the government's big, long-awaited energy review that there was going to be a 3-month review into fracking? Did it look like they're kicking it into the long grass? Do you think that moratorium will be lifted? What's your instinct?
My instinct is that it isn't. And I think that's generally because the general public don't understand the process. I think we're all human nature. We shy away from things we don't understand. Again, for me, it's nuclear. I was brought up in an era where nuclear was, the dirty fuel. It was the end of the world. And somehow they've managed to turn it around to becoming a clean energy. So I think it's education, but I think our politicians probably don't understand the process. The general public don't understand it, therefore they fear it. So I think it's unlikely that we'll have a turnaround.
Are you worried about Britain's energy security? You've literally travelled the world. You're a proud Scot, a proud Brit. You've travelled the world flying our flag, if you like, making your way in this industry. What's the word on the street across the oil and gas industry globally? Is Britain's energy security in doubt?
I think we've all seen in the last month that Europe can be held to ransom. It's compromised. Britain less so, because A, our own ability to produce, and B, the places that we ship our oil and gas in from. But I lived in Ukraine and worked in Ukraine for a year and can remember them turning the gas off and how bitter cold and how difficult life becomes. And I think people maybe should think about that reality, and it's only now that we're starting to see that.
Well, Gary Taylor, it really is a privilege to have you on the show. Gary Taylor there, one of Britain's most experienced oil and gas drilling engineers, lending us his expertise. Our latest episode of Money Talks. I look forward to welcoming Gary back onto the show in the weeks and months to come. And just before we finish on the money today, let's bring in some of your views. Michael says the cost of domestic energy in France is increasing by around 4%. The rest of the EU, it's around 20%. But the UK, it's around 50%. What's going on? Ray says it's not the case that gas prices are fixed. How will the government be able to reduce prices? By encouraging more production, Ray. Alan says, why aren't we putting solar panels on the roofs of suitable buildings and therefore not using up valuable farmland? A good point, one we've discussed previously on The Money. And Nigel contacted GBViews at gbnews.uk to say, why is nobody considering tidal power as an alternative power source? Unlike wind, it's a reliable resource. There was that tidal basin plan, wasn't there, down in South Wales? It got canned. Maybe that will come back. On atomic energy, on nuclear, Peter says, when Chernobyl happened, of course, the 1986 disaster in Ukraine, good TV series too. When Chernobyl happened, countries such as the UK, US and Germany were spooked and panicked. That was so stupid. I worked on the construction of 3 nuclear power plants in South Korea and the Philippines. They were Westinghouse, that's of course the American nuclear company, Westinghouse pressured water reactors, and were as safe as it was possible for those plants to be. And Andy said nuclear needs to be UK government and taxpayer funded. It also needs to be UK built, owned and managed. Otherwise you can kiss goodbye to any energy security. Amen to that. Thanks for your emails. All we got time for today. I'll be back tomorrow, Friday, here on The Money at 1 p.m, continuing to focus on the cost of living crisis, helping you beat the squeeze. But for now, this is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and that was On The Money.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A windy day for all of us, those winds bringing wintry showers to many parts, but there will be some brighter spells, especially for southern counties. This low pressure is moving away, but around that low we've got tightly packed isobars and a strong wind blowing from the north to northwest. That's bringing cold air in, hence the wintry showers, a mixture of rain, sleet, hail and snow in places. And the winds will be gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour, and those strongest winds will be transferring east across the country, so turning up across east and southeast England a bit later on. The far south stays mostly dry with some sunshine, 12 or 13 Celsius here. Otherwise, further north, it's 8 or 9 degrees, and the lively showers falling as a mixture of rain, sleet, hail and snow over hills. Many of the showers disappear through the night. The winds fall a bit lighter. We'll see clear spells, but further showers into Scotland and Northern Ireland, again falling and settling as snow over the hills. It's going to be a frosty night with temperatures dipping below zero in the countryside. In the far south, however, it stays frost-free. Cloud turns up here. A few spots of rain into the far south and southwest. Mainly the heavier rain stays out in the Channel and affects the Channel Islands, but coastal parts will see a damp start. That rain eventually pulls away. And then for many, it's another sunny spells and showers sort of day. Again, a mixture of hails and sleet at lower levels, snow over hills, and it will stay cold with temperatures of 12 Celsius in the south, 7 or 8 further north. The brisk wind continues, but not quite as blustery as Thursday. Into Friday night, once again, the winds fall a bit lighter. Clear spells will allow a frost to form, and so it's a chilly start to the weekend. But Saturday, for many, looks dry and bright. With lighter winds and more sunshine, it will be a more pleasant day.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss,